Ladies and gentlemen, we're drafting with the family tonight. It is lightning round. It's Britt Flynn. It's Kevin Tompkins. Maybe Andrew Cooper will sneak in later on. We'll see about that. But of course, we have Mr. Jim Coventry of Rotowire. Jim, my friend, how are you this evening?
Extremely well. Very happy to draft. It's always draft season.
Always. It's been draft season since before the Super Bowl. I've been drafting on underdog. I am ready. So there's no end in sight.
And they keep getting bigger. All these tournaments just keep coming out, like the Chihuahua that Underdog came out with, and then the Chihuahua
weekly winners,
Superflex.
The weekly winners now.
Yes, and then everything on Best Ball 10s. I mean, it is full on best ball season, and the best thing about best ball season is that you can actually win. You can practice for your leagues, and there's money at stake, and people take this seriously. We've talked about this before. It's not like people just jokingly taking like Tim Tebow or whoever else in the first round. You actually get real life draft experience here. But Jim, you are on the clock in about 10 seconds. You got the lucky number one pick. So
it's the no-brainer. It's the no-brainer. Justin Jefferson. You could make a case for McCaffrey, but it's not letting me pick for another minute yet. Or is it on? Oh, there we go. Yep, we're good.
Boom.
Yeah, make this nice and easy. No need to overthink it.
Yeah, I mean you can maybe tinker if you have a specific player take with even like a Christian McCaffrey. Like I don't want to say that there's there's one pick and if you don't make it, that's the end of your draft. But you can make a case for maybe 3-4 guys. I'd maybe you throw Cooper Kupp in the mix too, I feel like, but you're going to see Jefferson go off at 101 probably 80-85% of the time.
Howard Bender threw everybody for a loop in one of these drafts a couple weeks ago because he actually took Jamar Chase. And according to our very good friend of the show, Bob Lung, who runs the Fantasy Football Expo, he actually argues that Chase is the better pick over Jefferson based on consistency. So that's something that's very interesting that I kind of want to dive into. And I want to see if somebody in one of these drafts that as we continue to do them throughout this off season, if somebody takes that leap.
I just wrote an article on Rotowire and I do these ADP battles. And so I take like 3 players in a row, like on the draft board, and I go upside, downside, and final word. And basically with Jamar Chase, look, he only had 2 games at 130 yards last year, and they both were against the NFC South who had never seen him and weren't used to his speed. What's his upside right now, right? And then he has a great floor, and floor is beautiful, but Justin Jefferson, it's been like 1,400, 1,600, 1,800. I mean, it's like, where does it stop for him? And so I think that Jefferson not only has a higher floor, but he has a substantially higher ceiling than Jamar Chase.
And I think the fact that Minnesota's defense got arguably worse this season. They were already bad last year, but letting go of a bunch of key pieces, they're going to be fighting every single step of the way. They are not going to have the luxury to run the ball. They are going to have to pass to even stay in these games. And so that to me is why Jefferson always edges out Chase. But, weird things happen in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. And, you can make a case for those guys. You can make a case for the Cooper Kupps, but I'm still on Team Jefferson. I mean, that offense is so condensed. They're going to have to pass. I mean, between Jefferson, Addison, TJ Hawkinson, you throw KJ Osborne, they do not use a lot of guys. And, yeah, they're going to be putting more guys on Jefferson, but Jefferson is just another animal when you're talking about, having to defend him with not only a corner but a safety out over the top as well. But the Vikings are going to have to be more creative with how they throw him over the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I'm back up here. Let's see. Yeah, and you know what? Cooper Kupp is there. He's in contention for 101. I don't think there's any argument there, especially in this format, which is full PPR versus the underdog, where we have been used to doing half PPR. I move Kupp right there with Chase.
Points per game. Go ahead, Britt. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I can talk about my pick after.
Oh, you're on. Yeah, no, go ahead. Talk about your pick. That'd be a great time to do it.
I just wanted to say that I jumped the ship on Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams to take CeeDee Lamb. specifically because this is full PPR format. And I really think that with the departure of Ezekiel Elliott and Kellen Moore, that they are going to pass the ball a lot more. And Lamb is not going to have to deal with a bunch of those double coverages that he dealt with last season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be a target monster. This Dallas offense is going to fire away. And I think he has a much higher ceiling in this format than even Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. Stephon Diggs, I worry a little bit with his outburst recently.
Mhm.
And then also, he pulled himself out of the playoff game because he wasn't getting targeted. He had a little issue with Josh Allen. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. That could be something to, look at closer into the 2023 season. I mean, still, he's not going to jump out of the first round, but you've always kind of got that in the back of your mind. And I kind of have AJ Brown over him. I have Lamb over him. Adams, I've been very much on the record of him I don't think he's a first round pick in a full PPR format where volume is going to be the driver of a lot of these decisions versus half PPR. I think you can make a better case for Adams in the first round, but with these wide receivers, I mean, we're looking at a new era where, back in the Stone Age 20 years ago, 11 of the first 12 picks were running backs, and now RB7 isn't coming off the board of the 2-3 turn.
Now, Britt, what team number are you? Are you team number?
I'm team 8. I'm actually drafting for Coop.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's why I saw that. But you were right about Lamb, and I was just writing him up in an ADP battle article for first round, and I don't think he's hit a ceiling yet. And like you said, bringing Cooks in, it's going to help that speed. Speed always loosens up the secondary. So yeah, I think taking him there, some people might say it's a pick or two early. Not at all. Not even close. CeeDee Lamb, he's after Cooper Kupp. He is right there in that next spot. So I think it's a great use of a first round pick.
As a Cowboys fan, you love to hear it.
Love it. Yeah, we got some members of the family here. We have, of course, Jim in the 1 slot, Coltastic, Jerry in the number 2 slot, Hamburglar 23 has been in a lot of our drafts, Steel Lifer, Scott Frankel in the 5 slot, J Bro in the 6, myself in the 7. That is not Andrew Cooper. That is Britt Flynn. So at the 8 spot, Team 9 Tool Time. Chris Sellers in the Team 10. Little battle there between Team 8 and Team 10 there. Rock and Roll Ray and Sooners tied at the 12, taking Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor at the turn, coming back with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Nick Chubb. I have been firmly on the Nick Chubb, just because he doesn't catch a lot of passes. Now Kareem Hunt is gone. Dearness Johnson's gone. We're really looking at a clear backup in Jerome Ford behind Nick Chubb. So, Jim, how do you feel about Nick Chubb maybe upping the receiving workload a little bit and being kind of worth this spot? To me, I think he's very well worth this spot. He could be in that Saquon Barkley, 1-2 turn range. How do you feel about Nick Chubb versus past years where now we have the opportunity to catch more passes?
So I do think he catches a few more passes. You understand, both of you, how this June talk goes, right? Everybody's like through the roof. Everybody's going to catch 1,000 passes. And I do think Chubb gets a little more. But where I think Chubb is going to win big is that this has been a run-first offense for many years. He's seen stacked boxes week after week. Look, Deshaun Watson was bad last year. My argument for him is 2 years away from the game, he didn't recover the speed of the game. That comes back. That will be back this year. And that's a great comment by Frankel. Coop's going to love that. Yep. Anyway, Nick Chubb, for the first time in his career, I believe the money that they invested in Deshaun Watson, fully guaranteed contract, this is going to be a pass-first offense. Chubb is going to thrive in that because if you give Nick Chubb one fewer body in the box, in my opinion, he's the best pure runner in the NFL. He could have a few less carries, but he could see that yards per carry flirt with 6. He had 5.5 his first 2 years against stacked boxes. He could hit 6.
And he's just a beast. Have you seen him in his deadlifting videos? Like, this guy has not fallen off one iota.
Nope.
He keeps getting better every single season. And for the most part, he's been pretty lucky with injuries, which is very rare among running backs. And I think, Jim, like you said, now having a lot of weapons downfield. They brought in Elijah Moore. They brought in
Mm-hmm.
Cedric Tillman. They already had Donovan Peoples-Jones. Nobody in that secondary is going to know who to cover, and they can't afford to send the linebackers or safeties up to stack that box.
No, defenses are in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like you didn't pay Deshaun Watson to, hand the ball off, 67% of the time. Like, they're going to be passing more. That's going to certainly affect the efficiency, knowing you have now Deshaun Watson, if he can get back to where he was at Houston, throwing the ball and being a mobile threat. That's only going to help Nick Chubb, at least on the ground efficiency. Maybe that kind of affects his touchdowns, but just the strength of the offense. I'm definitely in on Nick Chubb in the beginning of the second round, as we're seeing A.J. Brown and Diggs. That's a nice combo there. Derrick Henry, Garrett Wilson, Josh Jacobs. Two quarterbacks go off the board. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, and Tony Pollard. Jim, that is a dynamite trio. I love, my T. Higgins, he's right behind me there, so I will never turn my nose at him. But Tony Pollard is one of my favorite running backs to draft this year. I definitely think he has overall RB1 upside in that offense too. We're a Dallas Cowboy stream tonight.
No doubt. And this is my first share of Pollard this season. I have Stevenson right with him. I have Najee Harris for volume. Najee Harris, when we look at last year, he had that foot injury in the preseason. He wasn't right until like week 8. But after week 8, his numbers were back in a very good place because he's not the best runner in the world, but situation is going to work for him. But Tony Pollard, with that explosive ability, he doesn't need the touches the other running backs get. And I want some exposure to him in draft. So I definitely took this opportunity to do that. And then T. Higgins, we remember he had like 2 base games where he was active but inactive. He played 10 snaps in one game, and I think he played 1 or 0 in the other. So, and those are just freak anomalies. Those don't happen. And so when we're looking at his seasonal numbers, we think he didn't improve from the prior year. Oh, he did improve. He just had 2 zeros, killed fantasy managers, but the odds of that happening again are small.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking to get just from a cost point of view, if you don't want to spend, the third 103 on Jamar Chase or the 102, getting access to that Cincinnati Bengals offense, another round more where he's not just a wide receiver 2. He can be a wide receiver 1, most weeks. So you're basically getting that discount. I mean, if you put both of those 2 guys together, you're probably going to take Chase over Higgins, but I don't think the gap is as wide as, what people think. So yeah, getting that access to the Cincinnati Bengals offense through Higgins is definitely the better value play.
What I'll say before Britt jumps in is Cincinnati's going to be interesting this year because 2 years ago, Jamar Chase comes in and lights the league on fire, and defenses had really struggled. And then last year they saw a ton of the most too high looks in the league, and it really did put a lid on them. Cincinnati, this is their year for a counterpunch. I don't know what that counterpunch is going to be, but I do think they're going to have to run a lot of combination routes in the short and intermediate area because defenses are going to keep playing over the top because they fear Chase's speed. But there is so much they can do if they had a productive offseason of planning this out. So this is going to be fun to watch.
And we also forget, because the Bengals were so good at the end of the season, they started out absolutely horrendous with Joe Burrow's turnovers. I think that, Dalvin Cook going early here. But I think that if Joe Burrow returns to form, I really do think it was a bit of a Super Bowl hangover for him.
Mm-hmm.
The ceilings of both Higgins and Chase could have been so much higher had Burrow not thrown interception after interception after interception in those early games. And I think that they get it figured out this year.
Yeah, it's a fun arms race because you're looking at everybody's got to compete with the Chiefs now. You're looking at the Bengals, you're looking at the Bills, you're looking at the Chargers, you're looking at the Jaguars coming up now with their young group of skill position players and Trevor Lawrence. It's definitely going to be fun times in the AFC with everybody. Britt taking Jalen Hurts. I thought about taking him naked, but it was between him and Andrews. I have enough Hurts. I took Andrews, but Hurts definitely the faller of those three quarterbacks. How are you playing these quarterbacks, Jim? When you're looking at Mahomes, Allen, now we got Hurts and Burrow going 2 picks. Are you staying away from those guys because of the inflated price? Are you waiting for their prices to come down? Or are you just saying these guys are the best quarterbacks in the NFL? I want access to their massive ceilings versus taking just a couple of guys in the middle rounds?
I avoid the top 3 because I am not paying that draft rate. I feel the next 5 could compete with them. The next 5. So I believe any one of those next 5, I usually like getting one of them because I think the drop off, as I said, is not what everybody's going to think it's going to be. Yes, those 3, Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts. Yes, they are ahead of the field, but Justin Fields, if he can learn how to pass a little bit this year, I mean, my God, he ran for over 1,000 yards, second most rushing yards by a quarterback in history last year. Yeah. And we finally, Justin Herbert gets a coach, Kellen Moore, that's actually let him throw the ball more than 5.6 yards per attempt. That's going to be something, right? And so Lamar Jackson, he's got weapons. So yeah, I do think any of these guys in that next tier, they can compete with the other 3 at a much discounted draft by draft cost of a round or 2, which is really critical when you want running backs and receivers.
Yeah, that's the hope of Justin Fields. I mean, they're following the blueprint. When, the Bills got Stephon Diggs, when the Eagles got AJ Brown. Now, I mean, I wouldn't put DJ Moore in that kind of class of wide receiver, but the fact that a team is willing to go get their burgeoning star quarterback a legit number 1 receiver instead of throwing to Byron Pringle. So, yeah, this is like the new blueprint of, us getting your quarterback to ascend to that level, so we know he's the guy. We were talking during the March about, will the Bears draft a quarterback? Like, I can't believe it was only a few months ago we were talking about that.
Oh my
the
God.
Off-season takes just get insane because everybody, well, for one, they don't have any updates, and so everybody is just latching on for any modicum of NFL news and any kind of rumor that comes out. They spread that and it grows into this gigantic flame and just keeps spreading. The fact is, this team and Justin Fields improved last season. And I think that they're going to see continued improvement. I would not be surprised to see Fields in the top 3 this year. But also I am very risk averse and I like what I've already seen and what has already happened. So that's why I kind of went with Hurts.
If you're playing in a league for a jackpot, you take the swing for the fence pick. You take the Fields pick because you have to separate from the field at some point, right? But in a league like this where it's just you're playing against 12 people and that's it, why take the risk if you don't need to, right? That's what you're saying, Britt.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
I am a little worried about my build because it's very different than what I thought it was going to be going in. But that's why I scooped up Gibbs in the 4th, because as a full PPR league where we're used to playing an underdog, which is only half, I think that Gibbs is going to have a monster season with all of those targets and the loss and absence of all of those wide receivers in Detroit. So I'm kind of counting him as a receiver who just fits into my running back spot.
Yeah, but give him 100 targets. I mean, I think he'll be good with 75 receptions out of the running back slot in a full PPR format. I think you're good there. I was sweating, a few of those teams coming back. As soon as Burrow went, I thought Lamar was like marked where he was going to go before me, but able to get, I kind of played it off where I could get Mark Andrews and the hopium of getting Lamar Jackson. He fell to me. So it's a couple detours there. A couple detours there, but I'll take it certainly. And now we're starting to see, this next tier of wide receivers come off the board. It's starting at the beginning of the 4th. Debo, Amari, Jared Judy, Keenan Allen, Gibbs, Lamar, Aaron Jones, Calvin Ridley, Pittman, Hawkinson, and DJ Moore. So yeah.
I'm on the clock here. Let's see what I'm going to go with here. I would have liked DJ Moore. He went to pick right before. So let me just type in here before I lose my timer here. I find my player on here. There you go. Find player. And I think I'm going to go with the volume of Miles Sanders. I'm buying into him getting used as a receiver this year. He had like 50 targets or 50 receptions as a rookie, and then he just got devalued there. So I'm going to roll Miles Sanders, and let's make a second pick here. And you know what? I could go quarterback here, but I am not. And I'm going to go with Mike Williams here. I think with let me type his name in here and get set up here. I think with the new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, I think that downfield attack is really going to play to Mike Williams well, because that offense in the past game was running through a slot receiver and a running back for way too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of, does that devalue? Do y'all think that devalues Eckler at all? Or is he going to kind of get into that Tony Pollard role where we saw Tony Pollard like just getting targets on the outside?
Britt, it's a great question, because the problem with Eckler, and he's gone on record with this, he doesn't want to be taking these carries between the tackles. He wants that diminished, right? I have no surprise if they bring in Ezekiel Elliott for that role. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But now we're talking about the offense. Kellen Moore's not running the passing game through Eckler. So as you're indicating, he's going to lose some targets. Now, he's super explosive, but if they bring in somebody for those inside carries, he's going to lose some work there. If his catches go down to 60, 65, it's fine, but it's not pick number 5 fine, or 6, pick number 6. And so he may end up being a first round pick by the end of the year, but I think it may be more that like 11, 12 as opposed to like the number 4 pick. I do think he takes a bit of a hit. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about it, honestly, especially as somebody who's seen Kellen Moore operate, and has, I kind of wonder if they're going to use somebody who they already have in that backfield if they don't get Zeke. And now that they brought in Quentin Johnston too for a big explosive downfield threat, why would you put Eckler's body and health on the line when you've already got all these 3 explosive targets? Now, if Keenan Allen and or Mike Williams get injured, it's not going to affect Eckler that much. But we never count on injuries. And right now, as I see it, I can see his target share getting eaten into a little bit.
Although it is the Chargers, and they always seem like they are the one team, like, we need to reevaluate their training staff, because it always, they were throwing out Jason Moore and Michael Bandy. Ooh. And I started Michael Bandy in King's Classic last year, a couple weeks. I had to.
Full disclosure, Kevin, though, 14-team league with 3 flexes. So, but your point.
That's gross for that, though.
Hey, it's not bad when you go to the free agent page and the second page has Todd Gurley on it.
Yeah, that is true.
And that's the truth. I am not lying about that.
But you know what? I weathered the storm. I got the belt right there. And Jim, I will see you in Canton next to you, drafted next to you in the Jim Brown.
I saw that. Very, very excited. Congratulations. Very, very well earned.
Thank you,
Can we just talk about the fact that I was this close to taking the Jim Brown division in my first season there? Had Mike Williams not gotten injured or put up 7 points that week, I would have made it to the finals. And the next week was when he scored that 44-point game, and I would have beaten literally all 14 teams. It was so frustrating.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's a bad beat.
Yep. So I ended up finishing 3rd, but man, now I am on the hunt for that belt.
By the way, I don't know if you know this, but I did win on a Jacoby Myers stat correction.
No way.
What
day? Was it the same day or was it after the game?
It was applied that Wednesday, because we were trying to figure out what to do about the Bengals Bills.
Right.
Because I had Burrow, Fantasy Mojo had Hayden Hurst, I believe. So we still had players, and we were wondering what was going on. Wednesday hit. I'm on the clock, by the way. Wednesday hit, and do I want to? I'm not going to take DeAndre Swift as much as I would like to. Lockett. Did Lockett go?
I just took him. Sorry, Kev.
That's all right.
I'm doing a triple L receiver stack right now with Lamb, London, and Lockett.
I'm taking the young guy. I'm taking Jackson Smith and Jigba, hoping he can take over in that offense. But yeah, so that Wednesday or Thursday, there was a Jacoby Myers. I don't know. It was like 2 points, so it had to be yards, and I ended up winning by 0.16 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And can you imagine Britt,
the
person on the other side of the seat there?
Do what?
Can you imagine Britt, the person on the other side of Kevin who thought they won?
Oh,
yeah,
no.
that was Fantasy Mojo. That was Darren.
Oh, no.
That'd be the worst.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that? I won. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't.
And can we just talk about that is the beauty of fantasy football, the highs and the lows that come even with everything about it.
In industry, like it's not just people's home leagues that comes down to stuff like that. It is a gigantic, industry auction league that comes down to that kind of stuff too.
Yes.
So
yes.
Gotta love it. We all get the beats. We're gonna get the bad beats. We're gonna get the good beats. Hopefully more good ones than bad ones, but that's the beauty of fantasy football right there.
Well, I will say I'm very excited because this year at the Expo, not only are we doing the Kings Classic, we are launching the first ever Queens Classic with some crazy, amazing people. Lisa Ann's going to be in it. Stepmom Lauren's going to be in it. Julia Papworth, just a ton of amazing analysts, and I cannot wait to draft with them. And this, guys, is why you do these best ball drafts, so that you can get a feel for what's going on before you actually sit down with crazy intelligent people.
Exactly. Jerry, who is in the 2 slot, has a question. What do you think about Deuce Vaughn and we're just keeping the Dallas theme going today. So Jim, as far as the backup behind Tony Pollard, and I'll let you make your pick. Your third pick, you took James Conner, coming back in the 6th round. So after you make your pick, we'll look at as far as contingent value or how you see that working out behind Tony Pollard, whether it's Malik Davis, whether it's Deuce Vaughn. Like, how do you feel about anything else there? Because they could still bring in Ezekiel Elliott, but in the event that they don't, I mean, is it worth even? I know we're talking about redraft, or we're talking about best ball. Best ball, more than likely, it's a last round pick, but still, if Tony Pollard to go down, there's a lot of real estate there.
I mean, right now it is Malik Davis, but like you said, they could bring in a veteran mid-season. If there's an injury, they may just go right to the phone and pick somebody up. There is a good supply. We've seen like Latavius Murray come out of mothballs and play well.
Mm-hmm. Still may.
He's right. He's
in Buffalo, but right now. But
he
played for 3 teams last year.
Right. He could be cut before the season. There are going to be players. So I think the answer for Dallas is probably an option that's not currently on the roster. And that makes it difficult. But if you have to gamble right now, at least Malik Davis would have a shot. But is he actually good? And you bring in somebody who's a veteran because they know how to read blocks, pass protection, all the things that are important to coaches that fantasy managers, don't necessarily need to worry about as much. But so, yeah, I think that it's going to be option C. There is a chance Elliott comes back, but there's going to be some pride there because if I think he would take a lower cost, obviously way lower cost, to go somewhere else, but it'd be a tail between the legs to take a min deal to go to Dallas.
Yeah. I just did on Fantasy Alarm. I did all the late round. And when I say all, I mean literally all, from RB20, Alexander Madison. I wrote about every single running back up down to RB65, CEH. It's a labor of love, but as a 0 RB guy, those are the running backs you need to know, these contingencies, who is backing up who. And that's going to be interesting to see what happens because we don't have all the information right now. I am on the clock, by the way. I did get sniped the last time we did best ball 10s on this player, and I was not very happy. So I am going to take Jordan Addison.
Nice.
Definitely. He is one of my most drafted players. Love how that offense is so condensed where it might be KJ Osborne in the wide receiver 2 seat to start the season, but Justin Jefferson was in that seat when he started, and he overtook Adam Thielen to just become that alpha. I'm not saying Addison isn't going to be the alpha next to Justin Jefferson, but he can certainly be a quality number 2. And then you're looking at Addison, Hawkinson, and Jefferson in a condensed offense where they do not play ancillary wide receivers. Behind those top 3 wide receivers, Thielen, Osborne, and Jefferson last year, Jalen Reagor only ran 57 routes total throughout the season. 57 routes. That's not a lot. That's like one shootout's worth of routes in a game. So they do not use those guys. Addison's going to be on the field 85 to 90% if he's healthy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And going back to what you said about Jefferson being the second, he wasn't even the second in training camp hype.
Olabisi Johnson.
People were saying that he was the 4th stringer on that depth chart, which seems so ridiculous in hindsight, which again is a reminder to not read too much into training camp hype and beat reporter hype, because I think, Kevin, you put a tweet out earlier this week that no beat reporter has ever said anything negative about a player ever. They want to hype up their team.
Right, exactly. Nobody's ever. Marcus Grant put in a great retort about that. About, you never see it. Somebody had surgery and it was unsuccessful.
Oh, that's fantastic, and it's true.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we were doing this with Jamar Chase too, how he was having trouble catching, was it the stripes of the football? He was having trouble adjusting to that.
Yep. Unreal. They didn't have white stripes around them. So, is this me again?
And that was a thing, man. That totally was a thing with Jamar Chase. And I mean, the talk, that was big.
Yeah. We will build a narrative based on anything. That's the nature of social media now.
I saw that Team 12 took Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott back to back. I would like to hear, obviously he's not in the room, but I'd like to hear the rationale there, because usually if you're investing in one of those top quarterbacks, usually you'd think you wait a bit, because if you're going to count on Herbert at that level, another position just kind of got burned. I would like to hear the philosophy there so I could learn something maybe.
And they have a ton of running backs. Normally at this point in the draft, you've got a lot of value going on, especially when you employ an anchor running back strategy. That's what you're counting on. But then you have these robust running back hoarders who just grab running backs like they're Pikachus or Pokemon.
Gotta catch them all.
Exactly. And so this is another good example of why you can't always count on your guy being there at ADP, because there is always a wild card.
Yes.
Yep.
Sometimes more than one.
Yes.
I took my first running back in Zach Charbonnet. I feel like Kenneth Walker is working his way into the David Montgomery kind without the receiving work. Like, I'm not ready to call Kenneth Walker liquid concrete quite yet, but 15 of the last 16 legendary seasons, that's 20 fantasy points or more since 2010, have come with from players that have had 4+ receptions per game. Walker has never had that receiving profile. Charbonnet has a chance to not only usurp Walker, but add the receiving element into that too. Now it's going to be a little bit crowded, at least in year 1, but I feel like if Zach Charbonnet hits the nut outcome, then he can absolutely surpass Walker. And where did Walker go? He went in the 3rd round, didn't he? Yeah, he went at the end of the 3rd round, a 3-4 turn.
A lot earlier than we're used to seeing him go.
Yeah.
So, again, because of all these running back hoarders. We need to get you on an episode of TLC or whatever show that Quarters is on. We need to have a conversation with you guys.
Definitely. So, yeah, it's taking, because they didn't draft Zach Charbonnet without at least wanting to run the ball. They have Walker, they have Charbonnet. I'm just very intrigued by how this split is going to work out, because now we have Jackson Smith and Jigba. With Lockett, with Metcalf, are they going to eschew the 12 personnel that they've run a lot of the last couple years and maybe go with more 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets to get Smith and Jigba on the field? And that's not even factoring in the fact that Smith and Jigba could force his way onto the field just based on talent. So I'm very intrigued by the entire dichotomy, and it's one of those situations that we're drafting these guys so high without having a lot of resolution. It's ambiguous in how they're gonna work all this in, but I'm still excited about a lot of these profiles.
There are a
Yeah.
lot. Go ahead, Britt.
No. Guess first.
There are a lot of takes on the Seattle backfield and offense, and they're going to be in. We obviously won't know until week 1. But Pete Carroll's his whole MO has been wants to play defense. He wants to run the ball as much as possible. I don't know that we could trust Geno Smith coming off the career year of all career years, or what, his 11th year or something like that. And so I do think that by drafting Zach Charbonnet, I think this is my opinion, obviously, and it could be way wrong. I think that Pete Carroll was looking at the depth chart saying, all right, we got Kenneth Walker. He's our guy. Our number 2 is DJ Dallas. If he goes down, we can't run the ball and play defense. They invest a 5th pick in the corner. So now they got 2 potentially really good corners. And now we have that running game. And if, like I said, if Walker gets hurt, Charbonnet could take over at a moment's notice. Now, he may like Charbonnet more than Walker. Walker's a bit boom or bust when he runs. And I think that's the one thing that could be problematic. So that could be there. But this gives Pete Carroll a chance to do what he wants and have injury latitude. Smith and Jigba, I think he could take over in year 2. But I don't see any world where he takes over Tyler Lockett, and he certainly isn't messing with Metcalf because they're just different body types. But Lockett is like the consummate pro, and I just don't know from a team perspective how they would. He's still playing at a high level unless he just somehow magically falls off the cliff. I just don't see Lockett getting pushed aside.
Yeah, I get that, and I think it's going to take more of a philosophy shift in Seattle for him to realize even a high median outcome, like higher than the median outcome to the nut outcome. I think you're going to have to see a philosophy shift because as currently constructed, if they're just going to go and run, more Noah Fant and, Will Dissly, those who's coming off the field, it's Smith and Jigba.
Right. It's snap crunch. I am worried about for Smith and Jigba. I'm very worried about a snap crunch.
Yep.
And,
Absolutely.
he only played a couple games last season at Ohio State. Like, yes, we saw what he did the year prior with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, but when you're coming off an injury like that, and then you're trying to additionally learn an NFL offense that arguably is always very much more complicated, you more often than not end up the third guy out. And I just don't see him beating out Lockett and Metcalf, who have been there for years under Pete Carroll.
Right. And I don't think DK Metcalf's coming off the field anytime soon. I think if it's anybody, it's Lockett. But, Lockett has been so, steady. He's been one of the most undervalued fantasy assets in the past half decade now. So, I mean, he hasn't fallen off. He's still been fantastic. So,
and talk about comfort for a quarterback, knowing where Lockett's going to be at every time. He is going to be exactly where you need him to be. And Geno Smith needs that.
Exactly. Yeah. He's outproduced DK Metcalf. He had a 1.94 yards per route run last season, which is still, fantastic. He's not going away anytime soon. The only thing that could really take him down is Father Time. And as we know, Father Time is undefeated, except for Tom Brady.
Yes. And eventually, I guess, Father Time did win there too, right?
Yeah, he got him. He got Peyton Manning. He got Tom Brady.
It's sad.
It is.
And then he became a cat lady.
Oh, great stuff.
Yep. So I just took Michael Thomas. Are you buying into Michael Thomas this year? Because when he's been on the field, anytime he's been on the field and not injured, we've never seen him not be good. I'm on this take. Andrew Cooper is on this take as far as Michael Thomas. If he is finally healthy, he's got he's going to be likely the second target, next to Chris Olave, but those who could flip-flop good weeks. Where are you on Michael Thomas? Because we know he's going in that kind of murky wide receiver range. How do you feel?
Go ahead, Britt.
I still love his upside. I really, really do. But he's one of those guys that's very much different from Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley hasn't really played in 2 seasons, but it's not because he's been hurt. Michael Thomas hasn't played in 2 seasons because he has been hurt. And it's a toe situation, which even makes me more reticent to take high draft capital or even mid-round draft capital on him, because his cuts were what made him. And if he doesn't have that ability to do that, I'm very worried about what he's going to be able to do on the field. Not to mention Derek Carr coming in there. Derek Carr has not been the best. I know that all the Saints fans are hailing him as the second coming of Drew Brees right now, but that comp ain't it.
So, I think we all just as a draft need to calm down with all these quarterbacks.
I was forced. Right. I was forced to.
I know you were,
because I mean, there's like nothing left. But I'm cool. Where this is at, like what, 20 quarterbacks off the board. Anthony Richardson, I have a quarterback 10. I keep saying this every year. Tim Tebow was a QB1 and he couldn't throw the football. That hasn't changed. If you run the football, they have like 5 legit tight ends on that roster. They might keep 4. They're going to play 2 and 3 tight end sets. They're going to do RPO. They got Jonathan Taylor. Richardson's running for a minimum of 900 yards.
100%. I agree.
I think
so
too.
You don't have to be good. Yeah, Jalen Hurts was an abject bad quarterback, but he got by on rushing. And now the arm came with him, the efficiency, A.J. Brown. And now look at him. Like, he's obviously going to consensus top 3. So I don't think Anthony Richardson's quite there yet. I think they're going to have to find some improvement with either guys in-house like Michael Pittman, or, certainly the run game is going to help. But needing to get another wide receiver, I think, in the next draft or two, for him to grow with. I mean, that, like I said, we keep talking about that blueprint, getting a stud wide receiver for a burgeoning quarterback.
You know what might help Richardson? So we know Richardson's accuracy is all over the board, right? But we know one thing. He's got a massive arm. I know he sounds like a joke to some people. Alec Pierce can get downfield. In the beginning of the year, he did, but then all of a sudden the line couldn't block. Ryan couldn't get got time. Ryan had no arm left. And so we don't know what Alec Pierce is, and maybe he'll stink. But I think with the play, if they're going to run heavy and they're going to take play action shots, Pierce will have a shot at that role. Maybe he's good at it. Maybe he's not. I am willing to invest shares in him late in the draft that he is, because if Richardson is just heaving it up there, that's all he has to do. Is a big arm. It could work, and maybe it doesn't.
Well, and we've, the pre-draft process, we heard over and over again how much development that Richardson needed. And then when he first got to rookie minicamp, people were like, maybe he doesn't have as much development to do that we were all hearing about. And that to me is really intriguing too, because you pair that extreme athleticism, I mean, setting every single record at the combine, and then if he can actually throw, that's going to be pretty damn impressive.
I love that line. And you're so right. If he can actually throw, I'm saying the same thing. It's like, but that's what it is. We don't know.
Yes. And this is why we need training camp, guys. We need training camp in our lives.
We're almost there. We are almost there. I'm going to blink and I'm going to be getting on my plane to go to Canton. And I'm going to be just like, where did time go? While I'm in my 55 puppy 4 slow drafts.
So, yes. Kevin, now that Jakobi Meyers is off the board, what is going to be your feelings on Jakobi Meyers for the rest of your life based on last year in the Kings Classic, the stat correction that he was able to pull off for you?
Yeah, Jakobi, I mean, between that that game against the Raiders, it was certainly a time with Jakobi Meyers. It's like a roller coaster, but I have to put his jersey up there, I feel like. And not only that, my MVP was Rashid Shaheed. Like, as he was fantastic. He saved me. Like, he saved my butt in like 3 or 4 weeks. Him and Ty Johnson as just a random running back, just throw him in there and hope he gets 10 points, and he did. Yeah, it's funny you think about all good players you have on your team, but these unsung heroes, that's what really connects people to fantasy. So, yeah, Jakobi Meyers, I'll never forget that team, because that team was just the way everything shook out, phenomenal.
You talked about Rashid Shaheed, and he was signed in October off the street. And what I thought was beautiful about his season was when he came into the mix, he was used as a deep threat right away, and
Yeah.
he was doing very well. After the bye week, he became a short and intermediate target, and he had success there. Now, it's possible the league saw him as a deep threat then, and maybe he took advantage, but he still did both. And the fact that he was successful in both roles, that gives me a lot of optimism for him having a chance. Now, Derek Carr is going to be a problem because Joey Bosa just told the whole world the truth a few years back. If he's under pressure, he's in a lot of trouble. And if Trevor Penning, the tackle they drafted last year, if he doesn't pan out, that line could be a train wreck. And Derek Carr is not going to do well if he doesn't have some protection.
Right.
Absolutely right.
Yep. I remember what, because I'm in North Dakota. I'm in FCS country here. So I remember watching Rashid Shaheed, and he was a punt returner at Weber State. And, I remember seeing him, getting in lineup. I think the first touch he had was a long touchdown. Well, I believe it was like a 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown. Was his first target, his first catch for his touchdown. And seeing that was like, wow, okay, well, this is what we're doing. Because New Orleans subbed out. They had like a bunch of wide receivers just in and out. They were rolling out Kevin White. They were rolling out, just a litany of guys. But Rashid Shaheed stuck.
Yes.
Well, and it was kind of the same way with Marquez Callaway. We saw like those extreme deep ball touchdowns with Jameis Winston in the preseason and maybe even in week 1. But everybody was all over him. And now he's like 6th string on the Broncos. He couldn't pan out.
Didn't he just get released?
Did he? I missed that if that happened. But
I thought I saw he got released like within the last couple days.
Marquez Callaway.
Okay, yeah, okay. I don't remember, but yeah, I could have seen that happening. But yeah, that was crazy.
we were so excited about him because he had like those couple of gigantically big plays,
right?
And then he just didn't pan out, because I think if Winston would have stayed as the quarterback, that it would have been a lot better. But that shift from Jameis to Andy Dalton just really, really put a damper in that whole situation. And then you bring in guys off the street who have been working hard. Sometimes that work ethic pans out more than just working in a training room with a team.
Yep.
Britt, you brought up Andy Dalton, and people know I'm nuts anyway, but they're going to think I'm really nuts when I say this. I think Andy Dalton may have been better for the Saints offense in its current version than Derek Carr is. Derek Carr's a better quarterback.
I do too.
But pressure. Andy Dalton will stand in there to the last millisecond, and he would throw the ball to Olave when bodies were coming at him. Derek Carr, those bodies are coming at Derek Carr. That ball isn't getting to Chris Olave. I am very concerned about the downfield element of Olave's game if Carr is not protected.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And I've thought about that. And you saw how many interceptions that he had last season because the Raiders line could not hold up against any kind of pressure whatsoever.
Right.
And I think that that's why he threw so many interceptions, because he just panicked and threw the ball, So yeah, I'm 100% with you on that take, and it's a little scary.
Think about it. What does it take for an NFL team to bail on a top 20 quarterback, to just say, all right, goodbye, middle of the season, week 14, you're done. We don't want you back.
Yeah.
Think about how crazy that is.
It's extremely crazy, and also makes you think about the fact that there is something going on within that front office, and why Devontae Adams is mad, and why, Josh Jacobs may be holding out, things like that. I wonder if it's more about the state of their front office and their coaching staff than it is the actual athletes, but there's definitely some smoke there going on in that offense.
Britt, I didn't even think about that. Josh McDaniels, when he was the coach at Denver, I think they hated him, right? Jay Cutler bounced out of town. I didn't even think about that because I hadn't read anything, but the statements that you're making, that would almost like coincide with that.
Yeah, I know that Carr was bad last year. I mean, very bad. aside from the fact that he supported, Devontae Adams, because Devontae Adams got like 20 targets a game. But outside of that, I realized that he was bad, but I don't know if he was bad because of his age and because of decline, or because of that system and the fact that he didn't fit into that system.
Right. Jerry, back with another question, another backfield question, talking about Chase Brown backing up Mixon. I'm a big Travion Williams guy, and I feel like if something happens to Mixon, that Williams will get the first shot there. But I would not be surprised if, you know, Chase Brown works himself into part of that rotation. I mean, we didn't see Samaje Perine coming until the end of training camp when he had finally gotten steam, and then the Chris Evans, those hopes died very quickly. So, Jim, what do you think about Chase Brown, or at least that Bengals backfield situation behind Mixon? And then we've got a possible suspension too with Joe Mixon that kind of, that might take hold, and then we got to really figure out the Bengals backfield.
So a couple of years ago, when the NFL draft was going on, I'm going to lead in through a certain way. I was pounding the table for Elijah Mitchell. I go, man, this guy is better than most of the running backs in this draft. And I watched the film on him, and I try to extrapolate how they're going to fit into the NFL. And I just saw now he gets hurt a lot, and I didn't see that coming, and that's been a problem. When he's on the field, he's dynamic. Right. When I saw Chase Brown, I really think this guy fits in as an immediate NFL player. He's 209. So he's not big, but he's not small either. And he can run inside. He's not a grinder, but he can run. He's got shiftiness. He could catch the ball. He is a versatile player, and he's good in the open field. And if you're playing on Cincinnati, look, defenses don't care about the running game anymore. It's about Chase. You're doubling him. You might double Higgins. And you've got Joe Burrow to worry about. So the running backs on that team it's going to have room to run. And I think Chase Brown, with the speed he has, I think he has a great opportunity to take advantage of that. So Travion Williams, like you said, he may well be a thing, but he's had opportunities where he could have stepped in and done some work, and they just have kind of kept him out of the way. And he's been around there a while. Now, I know he was hurt like his first year, but it seems like he should have had a little more impact than he's had. So it makes me wonder, but I get it. You kind of hit it, Kevin, that he knows the system at least. And there is a leg up when you know the system.
Yeah. Like Chase Brown, if he's going to be a thing, I feel like he's going to be more of a, mid to late season where he just comes on and maybe they're going to develop, plays for him outside of Mixon. Like that's going to be his, best path to getting on the field. And then the obvious contingency of, if Mixon goes down, I don't know if it's going to be like a 60%, rushing market share or anything like that. You're probably going to be looking at a committee with a bunch of guys that, it's going to be kind of muddy for fantasy. But if anybody can stick out and at least have some late season upside, I would lean toward Brown over Williams. But I think at the beginning of the season, Williams is going to be, just by virtue of knowing the system, and then kind of seeding that, as long as Brown, works his way into the offense, does the right things, and gets involved.
Britt, what are you thinking about that?
I think that it's going to be Chase Brown. I really liked his profile in college. I think that the Bengals drafted him for that specific reason, especially with everything that went on with Mixon in the offseason. It's easier for running backs to acclimate themselves to offensive systems than it is for any other position in the NFL. And so if he's going to do it, and there you go. You took him. That's perfect.
I took two Bengals. I took two Bengals. I had 3 on the team. Irv Smith.
I love that. And honestly, there still is a little bit of a possibility that Mixon does get suspended. We forget. And this is something that I had a discussion with Drew Davenport earlier on Twitter about. People don't understand that innocent until proven guilty only applies in criminal court. There is a different level of proof in civil cases, and especially in the NFL. If they can prove by 51% that they think that he did this, then they have grounds to issue a suspension. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. And with all the evidence, and especially with repeat offenses, like people like him, with people like Tyreek Hill, there's a very good chance that he does end up getting suspended.
And Britt, there was already talk that the team all off season, they want him to take a pay cut. They don't want him at a salary. And if he doesn't seem like a guy who's going to take a pay cut, they may just completely let him loose.
Yep. Yeah. I thought about him very early on as being one of the first cap casualties. I was surprised that he's still on the Bengals and Dalvin Cook is not on the Vikings, because I definitely thought that it would be Mixon going first over Cook.
Yeah. And one thing we also have to watch for is these veteran running backs. So there's so many out there, that could be a spot where if the NFL levies a suspension on Mixon, could see Ezekiel Elliott, could see Leonard Fournette.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And they may just be hanging out there. Like Dalvin Cook has apparently declined offers to visit teams because he's not getting what he wants. If a team is in dire straits after an injury, after a suspension, you're damn sure that they're going to call up one of these high-powered vets that are just sitting out there in free agency.
But Britt, the problem is if he wants money, he was available at a time when most teams are capped out. Very few teams have the cap money. Now, at this point of the season, are we doing restructures? Maybe. But it doesn't seem like the time of year when restructures are getting done heavily. I mean, in season, you mean if there's if he sat and he like went into the season, that'd be a tough time to get money. Because nobody has it.
Yeah, most of these rosters already know, they have everything kind of set aside from maybe a couple positions that will be battled on through camp. But for most of it, like 45 to 48 spots on that 53-man roster are pretty well taken care of. So, that's also, we're looking at these running backs, where are these guys going to go? It's going to take an injury. It's going to take, and then on the Cook side, it's going to take him coming down before a team comes up to his demand. So I think we're still going to be waiting, for quite a while on these running backs. Who knows? Kareem Hunt may be a guy that he doesn't sign and that's it. Who knows?
Well, he's another guy who's got a little bit of a criminal history, a little bit of some little spotty past, and teams aren't necessarily willing to sign that. I think Ezekiel Elliott falls into that category as well. We forget about that entire drama, like his second or third year. I think it was his second season that all that happened. There's a lot of factors that goes into who you sign. It's not just how good you are. Leonard Fournette punching a guy in the middle of the game, getting suspended. Dalvin Cook still has some potential legal issues hanging over his head that we haven't heard a lot about. And so I feel like that plays a much bigger factor into these signings than we think.
And then these are declining players. Dalvin Cook is totally declining, but they had great blocking last year. Minnesota came out of nowhere and had wonderful run blocking, but there were so many meaty left on the bone, I guess we say. He had some big runs. They're showing those on ESPN and the outlets, but there's a lot of runs where he just wasn't getting yardage anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of that too was if Madison had really proven himself to be able to be a guy that, you can't take him off the field. I feel like maybe we would have seen this a little bit sooner with Dalvin Cook. Just not being able to have that type of option behind Dalvin Cook kind of helped him out and keep him on the field. Now, Madison, he's a kind of the quintessential dead zone back, and I'm on the clock here. I might as well take, I don't want to take another rookie. I've taken enough of them. I'm going to take Chuba Hubbard. I mean, now we're talking about Madison as kind of the quintessential RB dead zone back, and now Ty Chandler is getting steamed. Dwayne McBride. I mean,
do you know how good of a run blocker Ty Chandler is? Do you know how good of a run blocker he is?
I would like to know, Britt, because I feel like you know.
So out of the 3 games, which arguably is a very small sample size that he played last season, he ranked 3rd among every single running back in pass protection. 3rd. This guy has a huge chance. And then we didn't see a lot, obviously, of him running last season, but in his last year at North Carolina, he had a 6-yard per carry average. I think he has a much better chance to overtake Madison. And that's why I'm so just out on Madison at his ADP. Everybody's like, yeah, he did so well when Dalvin Cook was out, and he's going to be the the bell cow back that Dalvin Cook was. I don't think that's going to be the case at
Everybody
all.
remembers those games that he came in when Dalvin Cook was hurt, where he got to play terrible defenses against like Seattle and Detroit, where he'd get 120 yards on like 25 carries. And everybody remembers those and wants to extrapolate that out to a 17-game season. And it's just not realistic.
And it's 6 games over the entire time that they were both there. I mean, that is such a small sample size.
He's been there for 4 seasons. Like, he's not. I mean, Michael Turner. I'm going to go way back in the archives here with Michael Turner, but remember, he kind of sat behind LaDainian Tomlinson for 4 seasons, and then the Falcons brought him on at free agency, and then he blew up, just massive volume. This was a bygone era where he could give a guy like that 300 carries, but Madison is not that guy. He's not going to be you get him on another team and and now you give him a starting role. He's not going to be that guy. They got rid of Dalvin Cook. They're going to be they were I think 6th in pass rate over expected last season. Like, that's, if anything, that's going to be going up now that Dalvin Cook is not there.
And 31st in overall rushing attempts per game. And again, like we said earlier, with the state of their defense, they are not going to have the luxury to run. They're just not.
Exactly.
I really love that Dolphins pick.
Vic Fangio, right? They bring in Jalen Ramsey, Vic Fangio. They already had like 5 dynamic pass rushers in their front 7. And now Fangio is coming in. Oh, good God. Good God, right? And if Xavier Howard's my number 2 corner, that's a different world than him being a number 1, right?
Yep.
Good safety play.
And that was
Byron Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was their big downfall last year, was their secondary. And they have shored that up exponentially.
And Vic Fangio. Oh my God. He's like the linchpin. Nobody's talking about Fangio being there.
And which is so crazy to me. Everybody's talking about, Tyreek and all the running backs. I think the running backs are the hot topic because of all the Dalvin Cook rumors to Miami. But what they've done in the offseason on defense is going to help them out so much, because that's why they were put in bad situations.
Yep.
Tua had to throw. Tua was under pressure. Their defense couldn't keep up and let them run the clock out. And so Tua had to keep coming back out there. This is going to benefit their offense in an incredible way. And I can't wait to see it.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Cannot wait to see it.
Best Ball Tense has got to do some little editing here. Puka Nacua. Put some respect on my boy. Spell his last name right.
I know. I saw that. I know. Nakao, it's on there.
I still think it's Tutu Atwell, but if we're splitting hairs.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. Look, I get the buzz on Puka Nacua. I get 6th-round pick. How many 6th-round picks make an impact on any level ever in year 1? Like, when? You got to be like this. I don't know. You got to be this guy that fell because of like a crime or something like that. We see that happen, right? A guy gets drafted late because he was in trouble with the law.
Diggs Hill.
So Puka Nacua. No, I'm sorry. No offense to anybody who loves him. Ain't happening this year. No world is it. I'll go on record. No world is he a thing this year.
Puka Nacua Nation's reeling after the hammer was dropped by Jim Coventry.
Yeah, I mean, not happening.
They're coming after us.
Yes.
So I was going to make a mention here. I saw you drafted Baker Mayfield as your 3rd quarterback. Is that just because you need a 3rd quarterback,
I was the last one to take a quarterback, and I ranked 20 off the board. Maybe Richardson doesn't play. Maybe Jordan Love stinks. Baker Mayfield stinks too. I mean, you when you're drafting those as your 2 quarterbacks in the best ball, you got to have a 3rd one. He has a pulse. He has Chris Godwin and he has Mike Evans. I'll give him that.
That's what I was going to say. Is the candle like just faintly burning still?
Yeah, I think so.
Mayfield?
I think so, because here's the one thing. All right, Baker Mayfield cannot play if it's off script at all whatsoever. Right. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, they are going to be exactly where they need to be. They're going to be open. They are going to catch the ball. You have a lot of margin for error throwing to Mike Williams at his wingspan, and Chris Godwin get another year removed from the ACL because he's getting downgraded this year. People are not giving him a break for not being like the full version of himself. He still caught 100 passes, but he is going to be wide open quickly. So Mayfield will have 2 guys that he can at least get the ball to. I don't know what happens with it, but as a quarterback 3, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think it was Ndamukong Suh who was talking about Baker Mayfield. Just follow the wristband. Like, you need to play in structure. You have these wide receivers. This is likely your last chance as a starting quarterback in the NFL before, you'll have to be a career backup if you want to stay in the league.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, this is your shot. You have to just kind of stay within yourself. I mean, yeah, you've got weapons. Like, you've got now the offensive line pieces are coming back. Ryan Jensen, you drafted Cody Mock in the 2nd round.
Right.
Now you got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. You've got Rachaad White behind you. Like, the cupboard isn't bare. I know it's going to be a team that has to transition, but there's pieces.
See, I'm just a little worried that Kyle Trask, after working 2 years under Brady, is going to be the guy. He put up over 4,000 yards in Florida in his very last season. No, I got sniped. No, this is horrible. What am I going to do?
I assume we're not talking about Kyle Trask anymore.
No. Kyle Trask is now on the back burner, guys. Crap. Okay, well, you know what? Let's just go with Big Boy Jelani.
There we go. Way to stay on brand.
Dallas Goedert role. He seems to be the guy they're pegging for that. So,
and he's so big, but also he can catch everything. It's not just like he's a Darnell Washington situation where he's big and kind of has boxes for hands. Like, this guy can actually catch.
Yeah.
And when he went to Virginia after moving from Oklahoma State, because all Oklahoma State wanted to utilize him for was a blocker, when he actually got the opportunity to catch passes, he crushed, and especially in the end zone. And in this best ball format, that's what you want. You don't have to worry about, when do I plug him in? When do I take him out? No, if he scores a touchdown, he's in your lineup.
Right.
Yep. Love it. In these 1-2 positions, certainly coming over from mostly drafting on an underdog. Now with these best ball 10s, you're usually getting to be able to draft CJ Stroud or Bryce Young in like the 16th, 17th round. No, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel of Baker Mayfield and Mac Jones. We're loving life here.
Oh man, yeah. Like I said, gag.
It kind of is gaggy. And I will say, I can never give Baker Mayfield any respect after watching him get tackled by Fayetteville PD. I was working that night across the street from where that happened. And as much as I wanted him to be a good quarterback, and as good as he was his rookie season when he came in, he's just kind of declined and proven that he's a little bit of a fake, maybe. But if you've got those, like Rachaad White and Chris Godwin for those short 8-out routes and those dump offs, maybe he can do it.
All right,
Zach
Ertz goes last, I guess. I'm going to say defense for last. Yeah, because I'll talk about a player in a second here so I can get the right click on here. There's one, and I think our other friend is still available. No, he's not. Okay, so he's not. So now I will take a defense here, and I'll explain both of these. I have a couple of good ones here. We'll go way down to the defensive list, all the way to the bottom.
Ooh.
Yes.
My
God. First of all, Jim, they got Schwartz in there as the DC, right? He is they're going to bring a lot of pressure without blitzing, but they don't need to blitz, right? Well, you got Myles Garrett. You bring in Okoronkwo. Zadarius Smith comes in. He's a top 10 pass rusher. Dalvin Tomlinson from the inside. All of those guys can actually bolster their run defense too, because Tomlinson, Okoronkwo, and Zadarius Smith are decent against the run as well as pass rushers. And now the coverage. It was Denzel Ward that was the worst of them. Emerson and the third guy's name evades me right now, but they both were good last year. And if they don't have to cover as long, they're going to be even better. This could be one of those defenses that comes out of nowhere and is like a nightmare for teams to deal with.
I think so too. I think that Cleveland is getting a lot of disrespect because their odds are so much lower to win the division, but yet their win total is the same as the Ravens. So tell me how the odds are have
Right.
that much disparity. I think they've done a lot to really improve their team.
I dig it. I'm just like, yeah, because we're getting down into the doldrums here. I'm glad it's not the what is it, the FFPC, where it's like the 30 round, when you're really getting into it. The defenses go, and then you're drafting like what, Tim T. You're drafting Johnny Manziel in the
Right,
28th round.
exactly.
Yeah, those are hard.
Those are hard. You really have to know. What are those leagues though? I forget what they're called. The ones where you can't have a computer or anything like that. They're the ones that are live in Vegas. The FFPC does.
Nice.
Yeah, you literally just have you have to do it all from memory. I forget what the
You
leagues
can't
are
have paper
called.
either? You can't even have paper?
Nope.
Oh,
You were
that's
just
kinda
you have
dumb.
a board in front of you. That's all you have.
Oh, you have a board. Can you write on your board?
Oh, no, you had the board. Everybody has the board in front of them. I mean, but
Oh, that's
I can't remember what the league is called. But
I wouldn't play in that league.
well, I'm a sicko. I'll play in any league.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old. I mean, I'd forget. I mean, if I have my list with me, I'm fine. But I remember yeah, wow. There's probably a lot of gone. Only the board in front of you, but that'd be tough.
Yeah, it would be tough.
It's like those days when you had to look at the newspaper and get your stats the next day.
Are you old enough to even know that was a thing, Brett?
Monday morning.
You know?
Yeah. Oh man, because I was the idiot that was like picking stats out of the paper and sending like a faxing. You even know what a fax machine is? You guys know what that is?
I do.
Fax a weekly league report to my teammates back in '94. Oh my gosh.
Greg Dortch. Come on. Can't even get Greg Dortch in a league.
What?
No, I love Greg Dortch.
I think that low A dot, especially with the
Was it my Twitter thread, Britt? Was it my Twitter thread?
Listen, last year when Greg Dortch had to come in and he actually outperformed a lot of their other players, I like this kid. I really like him. And then you look at the situation with quarterback this season. They are not throwing that ball downfield whatsoever. And his low A dot is perfect for that. Especially in round 19.
Right. He needs Rondale to be off the field because he's the direct replacement. He's a kick returner. But and this is weird, Britt, because I loved Dortch last year. So all of a sudden we're like late season, right? And then there was a game where Rondale Moore's out, and I'm telling everybody, you got to play Dortch. He got like 2 snaps.
Yep.
It was twice. There were like 5 games that he played. 3 of them he went off for like 100 yards. And the other 2 games they didn't play him. And I figured, what the heck are you doing? A typical Arizona Cardinals, right? You got this guy that can produce and you don't use him. I didn't understand that. But I'm with you on that. When he's on the field, he's an excellent player.
And now the fact that their entire front office has basically changed. Like they have a new head coach. They've got a new general manager. I think that they are actually going to surprise some people with their usage of their wide receivers.
They're going to have to, because they're going to hit reset on whether.
They're definitely hitting reset.
Right.
I mean, Marquise Brown might be, traded. Who knows? Mm-hmm. I mean, he might not be on the team by midseason. So you're in full Michael Wilson and Zach Pascal and Rondale Moore, if he's even there. And it might be just so gross. I mean, there's a reason why they're the lowest over under on DraftKings right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess I will
towards the end. It's so much orange at the end.
There's still running backs I really like, but I have to only take one of them, and I'm going to play the narrative.
There you have it.
It was between him and possibly pass catching running back. We'll see if he goes.
We were talking about the Cardinals, and I honestly, their 3rd round pick, Wilson, I don't think I thought him as a number 5 type receiver when I did my draft analysis. Everybody else is tiny. He's going to play like every down because Marquise Brown is tiny, Rondale's tiny, Dortch is tiny.
Yep.
It's the smallest receiver room you're ever going to see.
Yeah, it's going to be between Wilson and Zach Pascal, who's going to be tethered to the line playing split end.
Right, and Pascal's a slot.
Right, he's the biggest guy there, and he's 6 foot?
Right. Oh, Purdy was still on the board. I didn't even. I forgot about Purdy.
Oh, it's
Not
that
that it
injury
matters.
concern.
Not that it
Yeah.
matters, but
Well,
that would have been, he should have gone earlier than that.
Yeah,
and I
definitely.
think everybody's just really afraid of his rehab. And while it's not reflected in underdog, it is reflected in best ball tens.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And everybody is so terrified about all the coach speak about the quarterback situation and what's going on in San Francisco right now that I don't know if anybody like really wants to touch any of them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you draft like a Brandon Ayuk, you are just desperately hoping that it's Brock Purdy. I think same with George Kittle. I think if you have one of those guys, you are rooting for Brock Purdy. As a guy who is boots on the ground in Fargo, I think it's time to maybe put out the candle for Trey Lance. I'm going to officially put that
You're
candle out.
admitting it? Oh my God, do you need therapy now?
Look,
You admitted it.
I've grown a lot in the past 5-6 months here, and I am willing to put that candle out. I think it's Brock Purdy season.
Yep. I mean, I don't think that there's any other way that you can say he's not explosive. He doesn't excite anybody, but he gets the job done. And he's very conscious and safe with the ball. And that's exactly what Shanahan wants. He doesn't want turnovers, he doesn't want fumbles. And that's something that the other two guys on the depth chart cannot say.
But do you know what didn't get talked about? In his last few games, he was starting to make mistakes, and he got away with a bunch of them. Like there were some balls that were definitely interception beds. Like the league was starting to catch up to him a little bit. They were jumping everything quick, and he was struggling. And I think because they kept winning, because they were the 49ers, they had all this talent around them, right?
Winning masks a lot of things.
Right. And he got away with it. But he was not the same quarterback, despite the numbers, the later the season got. Now, maybe because we were in the playoffs, the competition got a little bit different. So it'll be interesting. Like you said, he did take care of the ball well, but he made those mistakes and he got away with them.
But is anybody else on this roster going to be better? That's the situation. They wasted so much draft capital on Trey Lance that they can't really afford anybody else.
Can Sam Darnold play in Shanahan's system? He stinks, but a lot of quarterbacks have stunk. Nick Mullins did something. CJ Beathard did something in that offense for a short period. Sam Darnold has the physical tools. He just doesn't have a whole lot of processing, right? But do you have to really process a lot in Shanahan's offense?
Especially behind that line.
Yep.
That line's going to help you a bunch.
Yeah, it must be nice to have Trent Williams as your blind side protector. Ooh. Imagine that. But yeah, I think this draft went really well. Jim, how do you feel about your team here? I know you obviously had the Influencer 101 here and went with Jefferson, Higgins, Pollard, but how do you like the rest of your team, how it shaped up?
So I keep my positional lists in front of me. I don't do, the big board. I do the positional list. I want to see how players are dropping off, where I need to go. I will go with the flow of the draft. The quarterbacks from where I was drafting, they were the quarterbacks I wanted were not going to fall to me at the time I wanted them. I would have liked Watson if I missed out on the earlier ones. It just didn't work out. It was kind of like back half of the draft loaded them up. So then at that point, the draft told me to keep going running back and receiver and then deal with what I can at quarterback. And then same thing with tight end. The way they were falling off the board at the rate they were, when I would have drafted when I needed to go quarterback. So I taking risks at quarterback, taking risks at tight end. But obviously that made me love my receiver, my running back room, because there's always a plus and a minus in a roster.
Yeah, I think that looks great.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you've certainly got, I actually put a thread out today about, I was talking about Miles Sanders and James Conner, just specifically on underdog, where Miles Sanders goes off and drafts, you're still looking at JSN, Lockett in like that area of the draft. But you could take if you take a Conner later on when you're not in that wide receiver zone. I do like that, but you got both of those guys with Pollard. You're obviously good at running back there. The upside of Anthony Richardson with Jordan Love. Jordan Love's the guy, him as your second quarterback. It's pretty nice. And then your wide receivers are stacked. It's a really, really good team. If you can get something out of the tight end position, I think you're top 2, top 3 easily.
Yeah, we'll see how the season shakes out, but those are definitely the downsides of it, and I see exactly where they're at. Guys, I'm gonna have to. I know you got to talk a little more. I got to skate.
No, yeah, this draft went a little longer than normal. Jim, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you so
us.
much, my man.
It's been a pleasure. Your insight has been wonderful. And we hope to talk to you again soon and see you in Canton.
We'll
Love
see you
hanging
in
out with you
Canton. Yep.
guys. I'll get you guys on my show soon, and we'll see you in Canton. Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Well, I think we're gonna head on out of here as well. But what else you got? We got the fantasy alarm draft guide going on. That is always going on. I just put out a late round running back article here. What have you been working on, Britt? What can we see in that draft guide from you?
So I just put out my wide receiver breakout article today. Got a few solid ones, got a few little iffy ones, which is always the way that it goes with breakouts. And then next week, I am breaking down the biggest training camp battles that we need to watch before training camp starts. It's going to be a long one, but it's going to be very thorough and have a lot of information. So everybody check that out. We've got the Better Morning Show on the Better Sports Network that we're doing at 8 a.m. Gosh, I'm used to working at night. 8 a.m. Eastern every single day, Monday through Friday. So you guys need to tune into that. We talk about trending topics, betting lines, etc. And we have some fairly lively debates. I don't know if you've seen the clips, but tune into that. And then a little bit of her story and a little bit of other shows coming up. So y'all just stay tuned and keep dialed in.
Exactly. Lightning round will be on Thursday because of the July 4th holiday. So we will be doing a Best Ball Mania draft with Tom Strachan. So that'll be very exciting to get to talk to him across the pond in England. So we'll be doing Best Ball Mania 4 draft with him, myself, Britt, Andrew Cooper. Besides that, you can look for my best ball tiers will be coming out starting with quarterbacks next week for the draft guide. So excited to get that out there as well. I think it's ready to wrap her up. Coop did not join us, but that is okay. We will see him on Thursday. For Britt Flynn, I am Kevin Tompkins. Thank you again to Jim Coventry of Rotowire for joining us. Always a pleasure, my friend. We'll see you in Canton. We will see you guys later. And Britt, lead us out.
Toodles.